Imagine this. The year is 2001. You just learned about the first new Metroid game in years being made for the new Nintendo GameCube. But this one's not like all the other Metroid games. It's not a 2D side-scrolling adventure game, but instead a 3D first-person game? How could this work? What are they thinking? However, you decide to push these thoughts aside and wait for the day the game comes out. And when that day arrived on November 17th, 2002, what happened next would change Metroid forever. Metroid Prime was developed by Retro Studios and released on November 17th, 2002 for the Nintendo GameCube. The game was a brand new take on the Metroid series, where all the games up to this point were 2D side-scrolling adventure games. This entry was a first-person adventure game with shooter elements. The game is played through Samus's perspective, which means you'll be seeing everything through her visor, which has everything you need to know: your health, missiles, beam weapons, different visor abilities, radar, and a damage proximity indicator. Movement is pretty standard: forward for forward, back for back, and left and right to turn. At the beginning of the game, you may find it strange that you can only aim forward, but the game quickly teaches you that by holding down the L button, you can lock onto and strafe around things, and by holding the R button, you can free aim, but lose movement during the time the button is held. The main focus of the gameplay is exploring Talon 4 and its different areas, finding both upgrades and Chozo artifacts, which you need all 12 of the latter to gain access to the final area and the final boss. Through your exploration, you will also find upgrades to your health, missiles, and power bomb capacities. Collecting these all can make something happen at the end of the game, which I'll talk more about later. Throughout the game, you can also scan creatures and enemies with Samus's scan visor to discover information about them or find out weaknesses. You can also find objects situated around the world that can be scanned in order to learn more about the background or lore of the planet and its inhabitants. I'll also be coming back to this later. The game was re-released in the Metroid Prime Trilogy collection for the Wii, alongside Metroid Prime 2 and Metroid Prime 3. This version's gameplay is mostly the same, but changes things, such as letting you always free aim with the Wii Remote, fixing some bugs and exploits, and toning down the difficulty in some areas. The game looks and sounds great, even after almost 14 years, from when you land at the frigate Orpheon, to when you're exploring the depths of the Phazon mines. The game is always looking great both atmospherically and technologically, running at a steady 60 frames per second. The music is also fantastic. Each area has wonderful atmospheric tracks, my favorite being the wrecked frigate music. The sound effects are also just right. The power beam sounds just as I would imagine it, and enemies sound more real than ever. The story starts with Samus intercepting a distress signal from the pirate frigate Orpheon, where she finds that the majority of the crew were killed by genetically modified creatures of their own creation. After battling through the ship and taking care of the parasite queen, she finds Ridley, now with cybernetic enhancements and known as Meta Ridley. Samus then escapes the frigate before it blows up, but not before she's hit by a blast that knocks most of her suit functions offline. Samus then takes chase after Meta Ridley toward the planet of Talon 4. After landing in the Talon overworld, Samus makes her way through the Chozo ruins, Magmore Caverns, Phendrana Drifts, and Phazon Mines. All while slowly gathering old and new abilities. After fighting through all the areas of Talon 4, taking down several bosses, and gathering all 12 Chozo artifacts, Samus makes her way to the Impact Crater, the source of Phazon on the planet. After opening the portal to the inside of the crater, Meta Ridley finally shows up and destroys the entrance. Samus, with the last-minute help of the Chozo statues, take out Ridley once and for all and reopen the portal to the crater, where the source of the Phazon resides. Inside, Samus finds the Metroid Prime, and after a long battle, seemingly kills it. But as it's dying, it steals the Phazon suit from Samus, and begins to cause the crater to self-destruct. Samus makes it out just in time, and, if you got enough items, takes off her helmets and looks over the now destroyed crater. Also, if you got 100% of the items, after the credits we see that the Metroid Prime survived the explosion and, using the Phazon suit, is reconstructing itself. For those of you who think the story is a little sparse or bare bones, don't worry, Retro Studios was thinking of you. You can find objects that can be scanned throughout the world to find either Chozo or Space Pirate lore. The Chozo lore can give you information such as that the Chozo on Talon 4 are a different group than the ones who rescued and trained Samus, that were more in tune with nature. We also find that the reason the Chozo ghosts throughout the game attack us is because the Phazon from the Impact Crater drove them insane. After beating the game, you now gain the ability to play the game on a harder difficulty. You can also play the game with the Fusion Suit from Metroid Fusion if you have also beat that and have linked the game to the GameCube with the Game Boy Advance link cable. In conclusion, I would say Metroid Prime is still a great game that I believe everyone with a GameCube, Wii, or Wii U should play at least once. I give Metroid Prime a 4 out of 5.